Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking with Curtis Koch of Broadway Limited Imports. And for all you UP modelers out there and Pennsylvania Railroad modelers, there is some really exciting news from Broadway Limited. I've been in the hobby since 2009. I've been waiting for this type of announcement to come along. Today we're talking about the Union Pacific business cars and even their other business car offerings that they're going to be releasing next year and into the future. So these business cars will kind of cover some details. I'm going to let Curtis drive this conversation, talk to us about the business cars. I'll chime in with questions. Curtis, thanks for being here and thanks for providing some of your valued time to be here on the channel and talk to my limited audience. So I appreciate it.
James, thanks for having me. It's great to talk to you. Great to see you after the a great hobby show in Indianapolis, where we were able to talk a little bit about these cars. And it's great to continue the conversation because back then they were just an idea. We had all the designs and stuff, but now they're actually coming, which is exciting. The Union Pacific business car 119 Kennefic. I know we had talked previously about wanting to do the 5 different cars, the Lone Star / Lincoln, the St. Louis, the Cheyenne, and the Feather River, and Kennefic as well. But I explained when we made the announcement at the Rocky Mountain Train Show that just the tooling costs were just too expensive at the time and still are too expensive to do all 5 cars. So we're starting off with Kennefic, and we think that a lot of UP customers are going to love these models and especially these business cars because if you wanted to find one of these cars previously, you had to go on the brass market. And if you're not in the checkbook range of $1,500 or whatever for whatever those cars were, this is a great alternative to get a great piece of rolling stock for your modern day. Either you do an OCS train or you want to have a excursion train with one of our previously offered Union Pacific steam locomotives. These are perfect examples for modern era business cars coming to your layout. And we've got several different versions of the Kennefic that we're making. The more modern day version without a drumhead, but it has the UP Herald on the railings there. And I should mention that all of these cars have individually controlled lights, so you'll be able to work on the interior lights, the red and green marker lights on the top of the car body on the platform. We got the ditch lights. And then for those of you that are getting cars with drum heads, the drum heads will be illuminated as well. So you have a lot of individually controlled lights, and we're going to have a little wand for you that you can easily just swipe over the top of the car, and it'll function it that way. So you can control them however you plan to do it. It'll make it really prototypical operations based for your layout, and it'll make your trains pop and add some style to it. These cars are going to have paint that will match the other Union Pacific passenger cars out on the market right now. I know a lot of customers probably have the Walthers Proto Union Pacific Heritage Series cars, so this paint will match that. We did get some really diehard UP guys asking about the color in that particular, so we are going to do our best to match those Walthers cars. But we do have a unpainted version, a primer gray version, that if you think our yellow doesn't match the yellow of your eye, you can still go through and paint the car yourself. Or if you want to add a fantasy scheme or do your own railroad version, that's an option for you too. But yeah, all these cars are going to be great. We've got several different versions of the drumheads available. We've got the 4014 on tour of specifically the drumhead that was on the Kennefic when it toured with the big boy in 2019. We've also got the George Bush funeral train version of these cars. The Kennefic was actually the last car on that train, and that car will pair nicely with our die-cast metal SD70 Ace George Bush locomotive that we're making. So if you're looking for a nice pairing there, you can go that way too. And the final drumhead version is the Spirit of Union Pacific, the 1943, and that has a drumhead there too. Again, an actual drumhead that the Kennefic wore, and that also will pair with our die-cast metal SD70 Ace 1943 that we're making for HO scale. So these cars are going to be great. Lots of individual details, car-specific details on these cars. So Kennefic is going to be looking very much like the prototype. If you go back and look at some reference photos of the actual prototype car and how our car looks on our 3D renders, you'll notice there's a lot of very, very close matches in terms of the underbody detail, the window arrangement, the antenna arrangement, all of that stuff. So these cars are going to be great. And for a street price of about $104, $105, you really can't beat that anywhere with multiple lighting features and everything else like that.
So how's the wand work? So that if there's multiple lighting features, that just different trips and different locations on the car to trigger different lights?
So it's gonna be very similar to other cars on the market, kind of like if you've used any of our HONN scale sound stock cars where we have the wand and you
Right.
just swipe over the top of the car and it swipes through each setting. It'll be the
Oh,
same
for
sort
each
of
sensor.
style. Yeah, and you'll just swipe the wand across the top, and the lights feature will go through a cycle as to which light will turn on and off.
Okay.
And then if you do have DC, I believe if you have DC, all the lights will turn on at once. So
Okay.
you'll have all of those lights on at once. Because I know some people won't necessarily want Kenefic on the back of the train. They might want to mix it in the middle of the consist like the prototype does every once in a while. And
Yeah.
with our planned announcement of doing all the other variations of these cars, like I mentioned earlier, these are going to be mixed in your consist. So you don't want all the lights shining in and blinding your other passengers on the train. You want to make sure that they can, have them off and have the appropriate ones on and that sort of thing. So that's why we decided to do that and kind of make it a little bit easier for everybody in that retrospect.
I got to be honest with you, Curtis. I'm seizing the day on these just in case, just in case something goes awry. I've ordered multiple of these on Train World so that I can do different names and stuff. But I think, as you mentioned, if the sales are strong, it's a green lit for more cars. So I hope to see the other cars get announced. But and also, sometimes there's these variations, or people even have their own. Uh, I've heard of different railroads, but some people have their own passenger line operations, kind of like just their own subdivision and passenger line operations. So, or maybe I want to be egocentrical and make a JLWII 2000 on the side of a UP car or something, and pretend like I own the railroad. You can do that too. So I'm buying a few of these to keep my flexibility options open. But I do look forward to all these because it has been a long wait. You talked earlier about the price. I've purchased overland models and other brass business cars anywhere from several $100s to up to $2,000+ recently. I've seen some go upwards of $2,500 for
Wow.
brass cars that aren't even as modernized or detailed as what you're offering. As the audience here on my channel will be able to see at these renderings, these are very nice detailed cars. And with the brass stuff, Overland, for example, put those out in the late 90s through the early 2000s. They had a second round of releases for some cars, and there's all these configuration changes. And you don't want to tear into brass and take a Dremel to brass to put in, antennas and stuff like that. So I think it's just great all around. And I think it's just really important that we do get the word out, because a lot of people, it's like, and it's happened to me too. I'm like, where was I for this announcement? It's months later after it's been released, and I'm like, what is this? And I have to chase it down on eBay or something.
Yeah, and for us, I know when we first announced these cars and when we shared the CAD, they had a lot of people that were wondering, are you going to do other roads? Well, for us, we're kind of jumping into a portion of these business cars that we think will do really well, and so far the sales have been very strong on. But the one area that we want to do is if this opens the door for other opportunities for more different types of cars that are found on modern day Class 1 railroads. And if that's important to you, if you want to see us make Norfolk Southern, CSX, BNSF, Canadian Pacific, Canadian National, CPKC, what have you, it's important for us to get your order, and not just because we want to give you a car that's really well done, but it gives us a sign that the market is there for these sorts of cars. Sales have been so strong, James, on these cars that we are feeling confident that we could eventually announce a second one of the 5 UP business cars we've done. It probably will be St. Louis, because of the arrangement of the headlights on the top. That can also fit into several different fantasy schemes of different railroads that we can do, like Milwaukee Road, amongst a few others. But the other thing too is that if these cars sell well, we can work into looking at power cars. We can look into making other different variations of tool cars. The possibilities are there for us to do it, but we just don't know what the market is set for it, because this is something that, as you said, the brass market has really taken these by storm, and you're getting these cars for a really high price. But from us, we can make it in plastic at a really good price point for the customer that can't afford brass. And if they want us to make those Norfolk Southern specific cars, amongst others, it helps to know that the people want to buy them. And so if you're going out there and you're purchasing these UP cars from us, even if you're getting the unpainted one to paint into Norfolk Southern or whatever, or CSX, it still shows us that, yes, there is a market for that, and that we can be committed to looking, okay, well, maybe what if we do other variations? The theater cars have been ones that we've been asked about doing a lot. And we can get more specific into, okay, well, what if we did the theater cars with this specific details, and we do it with these PTC antennas on it and all these different things. It adds the possibilities for us to do these things are endless. So if a business car, modern business train, is something you want us to do, it helps to get an order in, not just because it helps support us, but obviously it gives us an idea of what the market is out there for this stuff. And I know a lot of people have different variations of steam locomotives that we've offered an excursion service before, such as the J class and the Norfolk and Western A class and other things like that, the Santa Fe Northerns, of course, the big boy FEF and Challengers that we've offered. And so having these cars available for people to add to their consists, even if they don't use steam and they use diesels, it still is very helpful to give us an idea as to what the market is. And so that's why we're encouraging people not only just to get their order in, because if they want the car, they should get it, but because if they want other railroad specific stuff, it helps us get an idea as to what the market is out there.
I don't think you can say this, but I can, because I do what I want. It costs money to make trains.
It does.
It's not just about profits. Yes, you have to run a business, but the amount of money, every once in a while I'll get a manufacturer that lifts the veil on these prices, and I'm just shocked at what it costs to make a train. Mostly locomotives are insane, but rolling stock business cars, I'm pretty sure, fall somewhere between the price of a locomotive and tooling and a freight car, because they've got all these additional details. All that's got to be molded out, and there's videos online about how that works, but it's expensive. So you have to be able to pay for the tooling to get that done. And so, but I'm looking at prices like my pre-order at Train World was $103 a car, $103.99 or something. That's 6 cars at the cost that Overland announced them way back when. I looked the other day. Overland's original price on the brass cars in like 1999 was around $600. So, and today you're getting like 20 cars for the price of one brass car. So it's in the brass. I love it. It's handcrafted and all that stuff, but it's shorts. It has, they're finicky. The lights are not DCC, so they burn out. There's all this different stuff that you gotta, when you're operating brass, you have to keep in consideration. So I think the price is really good, because I was, when I first heard you guys, I'm thinking, it's not going to be what ended up being. It was a fraction of what it ended up being. But let's talk about, and I probably need to order one of those primer gray ones too, just so I can show my folks what those are. But let's talk about the other business cars for a minute too, because I see you guys have like Pennsylvania Railroad and some other schemes of a different kind of type of business car. It's like a Z74D or something.
Yeah, so the Pennsylvania Railroad had a fleet of Z74D business cars. Our cars that we're modeling are era-specific details between about 1935 until about late 1960s. And there's multiple different variations of those cars that you can look at. The roof details are different. And in order for us to kind of branch away from just PRR stuff, we've offered them in several different other road names. We've got Santa Fe, Canadian National, CNO, UP, SP. If you go on our Facebook page, you'll see some renders of those other paint schemes and how they look like. The car type is still based on the Pennsylvania Railroad Z74. But just like our UP cars, all the lights are going to be individually controlled. So you have interior lights and the marker lights. And you can't really see it from the renders, but there is a light at the top of the platform, of the observation platform. So that will be individually controlled as well. So there's a lot of great details on those car, era-specific details too, because we are offering a couple with the earlier PRR 30s paint scheme, and we do have other versions of those cars too in the later years with the balloon roof. And of course, if you see a version of the car that you want to just get a regular Pullman green, we do have the Pullman green ones there too. And you can place your order and just have to add the decals of whatever railroad you want and car number you want on the side of it. And then you'd be good to go. But yeah, these cars are also just very, very highly detailed. The interiors are also really well done. We've got like cigarette stands there. We got the furniture arrangement. We've got like a big kind of like a banister, if you will, of where like a books and stuff would be kept on the back end of that observation car. And the cool thing too is that there's actually still one of those cars, and actually a couple of those cars that still exist today. One's painted in a Great Northern scheme, so we'll probably offer that at some point. That's owned, I think, by Ozark Mountain, is the company that has that. But one of those Z74s has actually been modernized and is ran by the Juniata group in Pennsylvania, and they actually have a couple of other pieces of PRR equipment. Ours are more of the, like I said, 30s to 60s era. So that's where you're going to want to have those cars on the back of your Broadway Limited passenger cars, whether it be P70s or other Pennsylvania Railroad stuff before. But the cool thing about these cars is that we collaborated with the Pennsylvania Railroad Technical and Historical Society, and they gave us a ton of great details on drawings, underbody details, and that sort of thing. So these cars, the PRR cars, are very, very accurate to the prototype as when they ran in modern day. And they're just very sleek looking cars, and they're going to be great additions to any PRR modeler's railroad. But we're a little bit lower on the sales on the PRR cars than we are on the modern ones. And so, again, if you have a railroad based in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, etc., and you want to see us do, more road specific business cars, it helps to get an order in just to, again, give us the market for that. And we've seen orders for the fantasy schemes do really well that we've had of these car types, but it's kind of funny that the Penzi ones just are a little bit lower than what we had hoped, but we think those orders will slowly kind of trickle in as we go along. But like we were saying, James, it helps us to give us an idea of what the market is out there when people show an interest in it and buy it, instead of just leaving a Facebook comment saying, can you do the Seaboard one? Can you do this one? Can you do that one? Whatever. It helps us to literally gauge the market as to what people want by making a purchase. And I know that's kind of asking a lot from a customer to buy a car that they may not necessarily run or use, but it does give us an idea as to what the market is out there in more ways than I can really get into on a video chat with you and your viewers. But it does give us valuable information, to leave it bluntly like that. So yeah, the business cars, it's the year of business cars for us. We've got a lot of different stuff coming out and in design and stuff like that some of which I can't share yet, but we've got a lot of really great stuff in the works. So if you're interested in modern day or 60s era business cars, it helps to get an order in and let us know that you're interested.
Well, you can tell us. It's just between you, me, and 65,000 subscribers.
Yeah. And their other group of friends online and everybody. It goes through the grapevine pretty quickly, as I've learned.
Yeah, now those Z74D business cars are actually priced even better than the business cars because I know there's different tooling involved and features and stuff. But I saw all the variations, and one thing that I think everybody can appreciate is somebody like you at a company like Broadway Limited, because you're a modeler, and sometimes these companies, it's like nobody there is a modeler because you see decisions being made that, like, they'll put out a car and there's a tourist railroad or a scenic railroad, and they didn't put that number out. So
Yeah.
it's good, like you talked about the business car that's ran still to this day, or the restored business cars that are available. I think there's a market there if you're doing it anyway to have the museum ones and the ones that are still running. And for example, a recent example with Broadway Limited, the TTT-6 locomotive is getting restored
Yeah.
from UP, gave it to the Railroad Historical Midwest. I forget how to say that. But that TTT-6, number 5511, was in the roundhouse at Cheyenne. And I was like looking for that number to order it and or find one from the past, but they didn't do the number. And I'm like, no. But I was able to get it renumbered and all that stuff. So it was it doesn't hurt to have a little modeling, decal work, but it's also very helpful though out the gate to have these numbers done and these different museum locomotives and rolling stock done. So I look forward to that too. And there's a contingent of modelers like my cousin and I that if it's in a museum somewhere, we're going to buy it. So
Well, and that's why when we announced our conductors club locomotive, we originally were thinking about what locomotive do we want to do, and the N scale ones, we figured we'd do a big boy again because those were so popular, and they still are very popular. There's still very few left out there if you wanted to buy one from the first run. But the one versions that we didn't do was the 4019 with the smoke deflectors on it. And that was a unique one that we decided to do. But then for the HO scale side, we were debating, do we do an FEF? Do we do a Challenger? Do we do something else? And we ultimately decided to do a Challenger. And part of the reason being is that 3985 is also a part of that group that UP donated, and that's getting restored. And I personally rode behind 3985 in 2002. I lived in Illinois at the time, and it made an excursion run from the West Chicago metro station up to Milwaukee and back. And I rode on that with my dad. I rode in the dome car named Challenger fitting, and we had a blast. And that was a fun trip. So like for that locomotive to be coming back soon, and we haven't offered it since Paragon 3. So several years ago, we haven't made that locomotive since. It just kind of made sense to offer that at that time. Now, I know a lot of people will look at that as linking it to the other UP stuff we're doing, and they think we're focusing a lot on UP, which it does look that way. But we do have other plans for other toolings of that to bring to the Conductors Club of stuff that could possibly run again. Like the T1 they're working on in out east in Pennsylvania that they're rebuilding literally from the ground up. Could be an option to bring to the club at some point, amongst other things too. When there's the possibility to go actually do something like that, and the efforts that we go through to do that. Like right now, we're designing the Santa Fe 2900 class Northerns, and we currently have been reaching out to the group that has the 2926, and we're trying to coordinate with them a special run of locomotives for them to sell, as well as get the sounds off of the real thing. And when you can go to those lengths, it adds a lot to your model, and it adds a lot of really cool features that we can do because we're Broadway limited. And that adds a lot of really neat opportunities to do that to other roads too. Like the one other one that we offered to for our GP35s is the Conway Scenic 216, which we recorded the sounds of the GP35 models from. And we're able to offer that as a Conway exclusive. And Conway has the ability now to sell the model of the locomotive that they own and operate, so that's a really fun opportunity for us to go do that sort of stuff. So when we can, the possibilities are just endless for us to do things like that. It adds so much more fun to this hobby and to customers knowing that they're getting a locomotive that is the real thing and sounds like the real thing because it came from the real thing. That's just what makes it so fun.
Yeah, and if my audience hasn't heard of Conductors Club, you basically pay a $30 annual fee, and then that unlocks the ability to have another year on your warranty. There's some other perks, but a big one is the ability to pre-order and buy locomotives that are exclusive for Conductors Club, like the Big Boy, or it's the 3977 Challenger and HO scale, and I forget you can go over the N scale ones, but the big thing is the discount is far exceeds the $30 a year. People were thinking it was $30 a month, and I had to clarify a few times it was $30 a year.
Yeah, and the other thing too that people thought was that that all new projects, if you wanted to get it at a good price, you would have to buy this membership, which is not the case. It's a once a year release of something that we've done previously and are bringing it back, making some updates to it, and offering it at a substantially lower price than what you would find on the secondary market. Like you could get our HO scale Challengers with sound for $350 from us. And if you go on our website, broadway-limited.com, and place an order, all you need is you're paying upfront as $100 down to reserve yours, plus shipping, and then you'll be charged the remainder balance when they arrive in November/December later this year. And $350 for a sound Challenger is great. A die-cast Challenger, mind you, too. And then the non-sound versions, the stealth ones, are $250. So you get a die-cast stealth Challenger for $250. That's going to have the great pulling power and incredible detail. It's a great deal. It really is. And the Paragon 4 ones of both the HO and N scale, you're also going to get a Rolling Thunder receiver for free. So there's a lot of unique perks like that. But one thing that we actually just launched too for Conductors Club members is we finally got our product suggestion portal up. So now members can go ahead and log in, and they can go ahead and give us product suggestions that we can go ahead and collect data as to what people want us to make, and then go ahead and start designing, because then now we have an actual physical number of what people want us to make versus seeing a couple hundred Facebook comments about it. We actually have hard data now for that, and it helps when people go as detailed as they possibly can and leave us photos and that sort of thing too. So now it's another big perk, because now you can tell us what you want us to make or what you want us to offer for future Conductors Club locomotives, which is a great start. And it's a great deal for a lot of customers. So if you haven't done so already, like James said, it's $30 and you get a lot of great perks. You can find all that information on our website and go from there. And the N scalers too, the big boys being that for N scale, you get the sound one for $300 and you get the non-sound one for $200. And we already have the speakers included. So if you wanted to add your aftermarket sound decoder, it's very simple plug and play, and you'll be good to go. Yeah, these locomotives are going to be great for our first Conductors Club locomotives, and we expect more great stuff to come down that line eventually at prices very similar to what we had here for the Challenger and the big boys.
Yep, sounds good. And if anybody gives you grief about modeling too much UP operates in the western 2/3 of the U.S. So, and there's 23 states that UP operates in, and that doesn't even count. I'm a recovering UP modeler, but I still model UP. It doesn't even count when you see the leased units and the borrowed units all over the rest of the country, because I'm down in the southeastern United States now, and I still see UP regularly. So, UP is a big part of the modeling contingent. So I'm all about UP. You guys keep making as much UP as you want.
Good to know. We got James for everything else UP that we make.
As the old joke goes, I'll buy one.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I guess that kind of wraps up our time here. We're nearing 30 minutes already. Thanks for your time. I know you guys are really busy in this industry. Some of the hardest working folks I see between the train shows and the work that goes on behind the scenes. So it's never a dull day in the industry. So thanks for your time, Curtis. For you guys, be sure to go to your favorite retailer or brick and mortar hobby shop and place a pre-order for these business cars, whether it's the Pennsylvania Railroad and the versions or all the modern UP versions of Kenefic, be sure to check those out and place an order. Thanks for your time. You guys have a good one, and we'll see you next time right here on the channel. Thanks again, Curtis.
Thank you.
Bye.